Sports.
We are Fox. We are Ohio.
It started on the home front with a series win over Philadelphia. And then off to the road, a series win in St. Louis. And already a series win, but work to do tonight. Reds have won their first series to begin a year since the world champions of 1990. A beautiful night in Pittsburgh. Reds and the Pirates wrapping up this series, and the Reds trying to make it 3 in a row. Hi again, everybody. Alongside Chris Welsh and Jim Day, I'm Tom Brenneman. Delighted to have you with us for Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio. Let's get right to the pitching matchup tonight. And undeniably, one of the big stories in this early part of the year for the Reds, the young left-hander Amir Garrett tonight, his second major league start.
Well, you know, his first major league start was pretty special, not only because he quelled the Cardinals, but because he was able to quell all the distraction and the noise that came along with a full sellout at Busch Stadium. But all he did was keep the ball down, and the Cardinals all night long were just off his pitches. They were late on the fastball. They were ahead on the breaking ball. He used his changeup not very often, but when he did, it was very effective, and I expect to see the same type of effort here out of Garrett tonight.
On the other side, it's Ivan Nova. We've seen youngsters the first two games. This guy, a lot more experience.
Well, you know, this guy was really a Yankee cast-off a couple of years ago or last year anyway, when the Pirates ended up getting him. And now he's kind of evolved into almost their quasi-ace because he has pretty good stuff. He's really turned himself into a two-pitch pitcher. He's fastball, curveball. That's the way he went out last time against the Atlanta Braves. And we'll see if he changes or adds a changeup to that mix. But I think for the most part, you're going to see a lot of sinking fastballs out of Nova. So, Reds hitters, if you want to get greedy tonight and get that third win, get ready to hit that heater.
We have our own guy with a heater standing by downstairs. That's Big Jim Day. You want to know what's going on with the Reds? He's the man. Or as they say, the man. He's next.
Ohio is brought to you by Chevy. Check out their award-winning lineup only at your Tri-State Chevy dealer. And by Skyline Chili. Feeling good. It's Skyline time. Closing down the first road trip of the season. I'm Jim Day. Heard Tom and Chris talk about winning the first 3 series of the season. Hasn't been done since that magical year of 1990. Reds guaranteed of a series victory, but not satisfied. Check out our Elk and Elk storylines. They would love to leave the Berg with a sweep. Last sweep of Pittsburgh, 2015 opening series, April 6th through the 9th. Last sweep here in the Berg, though, you've got to go back to 2010 in May. And last season, they had all of 1 series sweep, and that was the opening series of the season against the Phillies. It is a much different feel right now. Can they get it done? They'll have to get past Ivan Nova as we go upstairs to the guys that will call it, Tom Brenneman and Chris Welsh.
All right, Jim Day, we thank you very much. You couldn't ask for a more beautiful night for baseball. We waited an hour and 14 minutes to start last night's game due to rain. Perfect tonight. Let's take a look at Brian Price's starting lineup for the Cincinnati Reds, presented by Menards. Billy Hamilton having a great road trip, followed by Jose Peraza back over at second tonight, Joey Votto at first. Duvall the cleanup hitter, Suarez at third, Schebler in right. Cozart back in the lineup. First game he's played in this series. Followed by Barnhart and then Amir Garrett. Ivan Nova, former Yankee farmhand. 30 years old. He came over to the Pirates and threw a pile of strikes last year. He's ball 1 as we're underway in Pittsburgh.
Well, Nova came over last year, and you see what he did immediately upon coming over to the National League Central. It became their quasi-ace. 6-2 record, really good earned run average, and he did it with a very simple formula. He threw a lot of strikes, sinking fastball mostly, 2-seamer, and a curveball, and occasional changeup. And those who saw him pitch in New York thought that, you know, he just never really got comfortable being maybe in that big city. And he certainly has enjoyed himself here. The Pirates signed him to a 2-year deal over the winter, and he's going to be here for a couple of years.
Billy has had an outstanding series. He's had an even better road trip. 3 hits the first game here, scored twice, stole 3 bases, and had a huge hit last night. And now he'll try and reach after swinging and missing. Can he beat the throw? No. Good play by Cervelli.
And a nice play at the other end by Josh Bell. He had to negotiate the thrown ball by Cervelli, and also Billy Hamilton boot scooting it down the line right there. As it turns out, he goes into foul territory to be able to make this play. Fancy footwork. Cervelli didn't have a chance to clear a throwing lane right there. He just picked it up and fired it.
Told you Hamilton has 7 hits on this road trip. The Reds have only lost 1 game on it. That was Saturday in St. Louis. Peraza has 5 hits on the road trip and 2 stolen bases. Straight up in the air, should be the second out of the inning. It is. The Pirates on defense, presented by Ford. Mr. Versatile is in left field. Adam Frazier, we've seen him start a game at second base already in this series. He's played 4 different positions in their lineup through the first week and a day of this season. It's been a very quiet start to the year for the Reds' all-star first baseman Joey Votto. Ball 1. Votto just 3 for 20 on the road trip. 5 hits and 31 at-bats overall. He does have 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 3 knocked in. And Votto has only walked twice so far this year. He's been swinging at a lot of pitches.
Well, that's really the telling stat right there, Tom, is the few number of walks that he's taken. It's not because the pitchers are, just coming right after him. He's got no balls. It's just that he is swinging a lot, way more than he has traditionally, even way more than he has last year. Hits it well, but not well enough to left field.
And it's a 1-2-3 inning for Nova. Here comes Amir Garrett, his second major league start. He gets the ball when we come back. He'll turn 25 the early part of May. And he joined Chief Johnson back in 1913 and Wayne Simpson in 1970. One of 3 Reds to make their major league debut and go at least 6 scoreless innings.
If you're in the same sentence with Wayne Simpson, that is pretty good company right there, because that guy, without an injury, he would have been one of the best Reds pitchers ever. And Amir Garrett had a pretty good outing his first time, obviously. I thought it was very interesting that he threw 17% changeups right there and 19% sliders. He really thought that his changeup was the key to the game.
Those numbers presented by Mazda. So here we go. He faces the Pirates. It'll start with Jordy Mercer, then Starling Marte and Andrew McCutchen in the opening inning, and that is Steve Reich 1. We know what the numbers were, Chris, and you just showed the breakdown of the 3 pitches, the primary pitches that he used in the start. But the eyeball test is always so important. What did you think of his outing?
It's the only thing that's important, really, because, I mean, the numbers, not necessarily how many strikes you throw and how many, ground balls you get and so on. It's the zeros you put on the board, obviously. What I liked about him is that he believes at the speed that he throws is hard enough and good enough to get major league hitters out. And it's a speed where he can throw strikes. And that's always the balance that every young pitcher wants to find out. How hard do I have to throw to get hitters out where I can still throw strikes? He looks like he's backed off a little bit.
Hard hit ball by Mercer and his counterpart, 1 out.
I mean, on the same radar gun the last couple of nights, we've seen pitchers, Brandon Finnegan throwing as hard as 97 miles an hour. Wandy Peralta coming in here throwing 96, 97. Well, Amir Garrett, who's known as a hard thrower, has come in here tonight and his first pitches are 89, they're 90, that last one 90 miles an hour. Still, these hitters aren't going to be on him because of the deception, and that's what it's all about. Find the speed where you can throw strikes and then go from there.
Yeah, I think on Saturday he hit 93, 94, but pitching most of the game around 91, 92. Strike 1 to Starling Marte, 10 hits in his first 30 at bats.
I mean, right down there is where you stay. Good spot for a changeup. He takes about 7 or 8 miles an hour off between the velocity of his fastball and changeup. That's a good spread.
Well, how nasty was that right there?
Same pitch. He gave him a good one, then he gave him a better one.
And there is no waiting around for Amir Garrett. I mean, Tucker Barnhart has those fingers down right now, and he came back with a 3rd one.
And even took more off of it. That changeup down there at 79 miles an hour. I'll tell you, when you got a fastball hitting ball club like this Pirates team, and nobody likes a fastball better than Starling Marte, go to something that looks like a fastball but isn't. I like that.
Pirates are not a team to strike out a lot. In fact, only 48 times so far in this young season. That's the 2nd lowest along with Baltimore in Major League Baseball. Reds are right there too. Only 52 of them. Strike 1 on Andrew McCutchen. Much like Votto, a quiet start for McCutchen. 6 hits, 28 at bats. He only has 1 run batted in. He does not have an extra base hit, perhaps until now. That is a foul ball. In fact, the Pirates have gone back-to-back games without a single extra base hit in this series. They have a total of 9 extra base hits in their first 7 games. In their lineup presented by Menard. Freeze a cleanup hitter, then Cervelli and Bell. Harrison, Frazier, Nova, the latter 3rd. Oh, and 2 on McCutchen. Pulled foul again. McCutchen had 2 hits last night, 1 hit in the opener. And a 2-hopper down to Suarez, and another great start. Ho hum, says Amir Garrett. 7 innings in his major league career. of 2-hit shutout baseball. Brought to you by Miller Lite. Reds have been playing long ball to begin this year. They've been doing everything well. I mean, they're one of 3 teams to homer in every game. 2 slugging teams over in the American League, the Rangers and the Tigers, the other 2. And here's a man who leads away in that category, along with Scooter Gennett, I might add. And that would be Adam Duvall. Hit number 3 here last night, his first time up, leading off the 2nd inning. This time, first pitch swinging, and that's Harrison, a long throw with a shift on, 1 pitch, 1 out.
You know, I would imagine against Ivan Nova that the Reds will have a lot of early swinging in the count. Last time he pitched against the Atlanta Braves, he threw nearly 90% fastballs. I mean, he just kind of comes with you with the fastball, throws a little curveball, rarely throws a changeup. So when you step up there first pitch, chances are you're getting a fastball. So why not take a good hack if you like it?
Suarez has 9 hits in his first 24 at-bats, 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 5 runs batted in. He's walked 5 times. His on-base percentage through 8 games is exactly .500. Two hits last night, scored a run, knocked in a run. And he has played brilliantly down at third as well, continuing to grow more and more comfortable. Had always been a shortstop till the Reds acquired him and moved him over to third. 2-1. Reds will get in late tonight, and then they are at it tomorrow night. Open up a 10-game homestand. Milwaukee in for 4 beginning tomorrow night through Easter weekend. Back up through the middle. Mercer can't pick it up. That'll be a base hit for Suarez. Baltimore comes in for 3 after the Brewers. And then the defending world champion Chicago Cubs, who have only lost twice as well, will come in next Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, speaking about next Saturday and Sunday, Tom, I thought it was very interesting to hear some of the comments surrounding Brian Price and the anticipation of getting Devin Mesoraco back. Sometime in that time frame is what they're hoping for.
Well, he caught 9 innings 2 nights ago. Jim Day reported on that. Brian had made the comment that he'd have to go 9 and 7 or 7 and 9 back to back. They gave him yesterday off, so he's due to catch tonight. And they'll wait and see how he's doing after that, whether they'll double up now or wait until the middle part of next week, early next week. Freeze backs up on it. And Schebler is a second out in the second inning. Cozart coming up. Tell you what, though, you know, whether it's Stuart Turner, the job he's done behind the plate, whether it's Tucker Barnhart so far this year, and of course all of last year, the Reds have missed Mesoraco and the potential of Mesoraco. The Mesoraco the last time he played a full year, where he hit 25 home runs, went to the All-Star game, drove in 80. But they've at least hung in there behind the plate.
Well, it's not a position of weakness for this ball club. If you look at the team and say, well, where's the biggest weakness? So you wouldn't say the first thing is, you know, Tucker Barnhart behind the plate.
Right.
He's done an excellent job. Be interesting to see how they begin to weave, you know, playing time for both of those guys. Trying to play matchups, perhaps, trying to figure out when to give players time off, which pitchers perhaps like to use certain catchers. There are a lot of things that go into making those decisions.
Cozart has opened the year with a 6-game hitting streak. He has not played the last 2 because of a sore left wrist. He was the hottest hitter on this Reds team through the first 6 games. He's behind 0-2.
You know, it's almost like Nova knows he's got a sore wrist, and I'm sure they do. That's the kind of information that other teams just love to feed on. And he is just crowding him with fastball after fastball right in there, challenging Cozart to get that bat head out.
The Reds have not only pitched well, defended well, hit well, they've run well. Glenn Hurdle referring to this Reds team. You don't hear it much in the game of baseball to describe a team, but his comments after the game last night, that is a very athletic team. They have 10 stolen bases already this year. Reds gone on the force out. A hit by Suarez. Middle of the second, a scoreless game.
You know, it was just one start. You know, I got to put that behind me now. I'm just ready to move forward to my next start. I think I've been doing a really good job, you know, preparing up to my next start. Worked really well in the bullpen this week. You know, now it's just time to go and go out there again and try to do it again.
I'm Jim Day. When I interviewed Amir Garrett yesterday, I expected him to be on cloud 9 still a little bit, maybe a little bit of cockiness, but he was very even-keeled. I asked him if teammates had talked to him about staying even-keeled as a starter. He says, oh, no, I already knew this, and it's kind of a theme of what we've talked about, Tom and Chris. These young pitchers in particular, very even-keeled and do not get too big for their britches, if you will.
Well, Jim, we've seen how it can turn around so quickly. I mean, not only for young guys, just happens to them a little more frequently, but even the guys that have been around for a while.
Well, one of my favorite people in baseball, Tim Flannery, has a saying about that. There are two kinds of baseball players. There are those that are humbled, and there are those that are about to be humbled.
It's a great saying. Fouled out a play off to the first base side. Leading off the Pirates' second is third baseman David Freese.
And with as much work as you do as a starting pitcher between starts, you have no time. You may have one day where the day after you get your work in and you sit there in the dugout and you watch the team that you maybe beat the day before, and then you kind of revel in it and you're happy. But from then on, it's all work. You got bullpen stuff to do. You've got conditioning to do, endurance work to do. And then now you've got to start concentrating on the scouting report for your next start.
It's gone 3-2 on Freese to open this second inning of a scoreless game, and now he'll back off and regroup. Right back on the rubber. And OK's a sign with Tucker, and here we go.
You know, when you pitch a really good game, the way that Amir Garrett pitched against the Cardinals, those 5 days fly by. When you have a bad game, like Brandon Finnegan, for instance. I mean, these 4 or 5 days between his last start and the next start will drag and seem like it is forever.
Well, Brandon will next get the ball on Easter Sunday. Or no, he'll start. It'll be Saturday. There's a base hit into center field by Freese. First Pirate to reach base.
And Amir's asking that age-old question. How did that ball miss me? Wow.
Catcher Francisco Cervelli, the batter. Native Venezuelan. His mom is Venezuelan. His father is Italian. And you heard his walk-up music there a moment ago. That's Amore. Great song.
Fan favorite. I mean, they have just taken to him big time. He's another guy the Pirates got from the Yankees. I wonder what the connection there is.
2-0-1 Cervelli. And it's in the air. A long run for Schebler. And a step late.
Well, he was a step late, Schebler was, and Cervelli at the plate was just a click late. I mean, it's really interesting to watch Garrett. And, you know, when you see a young kid in the minor league games back on the backfield, it's a Goodyear, Arizona, you don't have enough time to really study him. But the more you see him pitch, the more you see the hitters don't really lock in on him. That doesn't mean he's not going to have a bad game. But he seems to throw a fastball right there at a hitting speed, yet he's just missing the sweet part.
Freese a very short lead. They'll throw over anyway. Cervelli had a big time year the first year he came over from the Yankees in 2015. That ball is in the air and crushed into left center field, but look who will be there. It is extraordinary the amount of ground that Billy Hamilton covers.
It's like a video
just
game.
Incredible. Incredible. See, he's shading well over to the right center field side.
And Billy Hamilton loves this too. Because when you run like that, you want everybody to know that you're fast. He's like, come on, hit another one out here.
Well, that was it. You know, the way we described it the other night when he made that great catch up against the wall in left center field and the ball hit by McCutchen. When you sit where we are in this ballpark, and normally we're about 2 or 3 levels down from where we are. Here we're at the very top of the stadium. Beautiful view and see the entire field of play. But when the ball goes in the air, it's really almost at eye level when it's hit that high. And all of a sudden, in the bottom part of your vision, peripheral vision, you'll see this movement and just streamline straight to a ball that you thought no way could catch. What a pick that is, and they turn it over for 2. Oh my.
Play some D.
Suarez made a play like that over the weekend in St. Louis, and a dandy here turned over by Peraza. Boy, the Reds got it working, really working right now. With a fast-paced pickup and play MLB action. All your favorite MLB teams, players, ballparks, and so much more. Get RBI Baseball today for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and all mobile devices. Learn more at RBIGame.com. A beautiful defensive double play by the Reds. Suarez, Peraza, Tavado. Keeping this a scoreless game as the Reds bat in the 3rd. Tucker Barnhart looks at a strike.
You know, Nova's an example of a guy we were talking about earlier, Tom, who has figured out at what speed he can throw the most strikes where he wants to, and then kind of goes from there.
Nice 2-strike piece of hitting right there by Barnhart. Bangs one into center field, a hit to begin the Reds' 3rd inning.
Pitcher number 50, Amir Garrett.
I know we've heard so much about a number of these Reds pitchers as batters. Figures Garrett will be asked to bunt here. He went 0 for 2 as a hitter his major league debut in St. Louis. Not a good bunt. And this will be an easy double play.
Not good for him either. For all the practice and all the good advice and coaching they got down in spring training, it seems like when you get into a game, you forget all of it. And he walked up there with the bat head very low, down around thigh high, and he'll get better at it. See how low his bat head is right there? That ought to be up here somewhere. And that way when you bend down to get a pitch, you bend with your knees rather than drop your elbows. And, well, it can only get better. Actually, it's the second time for Amir Garrett having some problems with the front. It was a safety squeeze in St. Louis,
right,
where Zach Cozart ended up being a little too aggressive on that and getting picked off. Garrett was expected to bunt. Actually, he was expected to bunt down the first base line, and had he been able to get it down there, they probably would have been able to score another run. At that time, I believe a one-run game.
White at the first baseman, Bell. Billy 0 for 2, and the Reds are through in the third. After 2.5 in Pittsburgh, a scoreless game. Reds defense already playing a big factor today and this season. You look at it, brought to you by Ford. Billy's already made a really nice play, and boy, what a dandy by Suarez an inning ago. So the latter third coming up in Clint Hurdle's batting order.
I mean, if you're thinking about it, in that last inning, Amir Garrett nearly gets undressed by a line drive up the middle. Billy Hamilton runs down. He looked like a wide receiver on a fly pattern. I mean, he went so far to get that ball and to pull that ball down out of extra bases. And what could have been a double down the line turns into a double play. So defense does have something to do with it.
Suarez, good throw, charging into the grass to retire the Cincinnatian Josh Harrison. Let's go back to that play a moment ago.
You know, they say the double play is a pitcher's best friend, but when you pick it off the third baseline where it's headed for the corner and turn it into two, it's better than your best friend. It's your best friend forever.
Adam Frazier now the batter. Well, he's got one of the great walk-up tunes in all of baseball. We told you the other night he's from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and he has that old John Fogerty CCR tune, Born on the Bayou. Big league tune.
Indeed.
Two and one to Frazier. Perfect location with that fastball at 92 miles per hour. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Oh boy, right there. That is getting tied up pretzel-like fashion for Frazier walking back to the dugout.
Makes you feel good when you're a pitcher that can do this too. Look at the action on that fastball. Man, oh man, you just keep your fingers on top and push it on down.
Nova had one official at bat his first game. He pitched an excellent game in getting the win over Atlanta. You know, the Pirates started the year with 2 games in Boston. They had 1 game rained out. They'll make that up tomorrow afternoon at Fenway Park. They beat Atlanta 3 in a row, and the Reds are trying to beat them 3 in a row. And it's 3 up and 3 down for Mr. Garrett. Peraza, Votto, Duvall coming up. No score.
Garrett's debut, we told you that he writes Pops inside of his hat to salute his grandfather, who has since passed away. A lot of people noticed on the outside of his cap was an MM. Now that hat, because of what he did in his major league debut, is now in the Reds Hall of Fame. And here's a photo of it. It's MM, and it stands for Michael Manteris. He is wearing that MM on the inside of his hat tonight. Michael Manteris is a young man. He's very close to his girlfriend, is Amir Garrett. And her boss's son, Michael Manteris, unfortunately caught a rare form of leukemia and recently passed away. He idolized Amir. Amir still messages often with his father, Nick Manteris. But you talk to him and it just breaks his heart that it happened. It happens to any child like that, obviously. But saluting him as well with an MM on the inside of his hat tonight.
Jim, that's great stuff. You can only imagine how that must make that young man's father feel, knowing that Amir Garrett still celebrates the life of his little boy and in a better place now. Jose Peraza, a count of 2 balls and a strike. We begin the 4th, no score. We talked about Joey Votto, and a big part of his game is, drawing walks. Leads the league seemingly every year in on-base percentage, along with his outstanding hitting. Jose Peraza has not drawn a walk in his last 65 plate appearances. That goes back to September of last year. Now, having said that, he's not struck out in his last 25 plate appearances. So he's up there to swing the bat. Of course, with time, you figure he'll grow more patient as a batter. 2-2 on the way. Back to the mound. Looks like Nova is on top of his game again tonight.
You know, he's got about the simplest formula that you can have. I mean, he's right there with Bartolo Colon as far as someone who believes in throwing his fastball. In fact, he's thrown a first pitch fastball now to every hitter that he has faced. I mean, just coming right after you. And it's not like he's going to throw a, you know, the old saying, a strawberry through a battleship. He's not throwing that hard, but he's got a little movement. He gets good extension. And he's not afraid to use it. It just goes to show you that every time you throw one down the middle doesn't mean it automatically is going to get hit and hit hard. Now, he's been outstanding as far as his control and command goes. His strikeout to walk ratio, which is a really good barometer. They used to call it a power number. But it also really shows you how much command you have. And he has got it atop the National League ever since he came over here from the Yankees.
Yeah, but did you see that spread? Everybody else had good numbers. His was 18-1.
Well, you know how to keep that number up, don't you? You don't have to strike out a lot of guys. You just have to walk nobody.
That's right.
It's all about the denominator.
So interesting, you know, you look at Nova, signed as a teenager. Yankees had him in their system. Minor leagues for 5 years. San Diego took him in the Rule 5 draft and then sent him back to the Yankees. That was in 2009. In 2011, he went 16-4 with an ERA of 3.70 in his rookie season in the Bronx and naturally in New York. I mean, that'll get you a lot of headlines. But it also comes with a lot of expectations. Votto retired for the second time. Nova came back the next year. He won 12, but the ERA swelled to over 5. 13, a 9-game winner. ERA the best it had ever been. Barely over 3. But then injuries hit in 2014. Came back in 15. Did not pitch well at all for the Yankees. Same way it started in 16 and then acquired by the Pirates on August the 1st. That was actually after the trade deadline for 2 players to be named. And he has pitched like the guy who went 16-4 in 2011. In fact, the overall numbers are even much better than many of those that season he won the 16 games. "30 years old now is Nova. Big man. 6'5", 240.
Well, I mean, I would call that more like average nowadays.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, he just falls right in line with just about all the other starting pitchers the Reds have. I mean, Brandon Finnegan is the odd man out there, but he's stocky and strong as a bull. Bronson Arroyo is about 6'5", but maybe he's waiting for his post-playing years before he adds the extra 60 pounds.
It's funny when they show up down the road from time to time.
I don't think he'll be like that, though.
No way. Fly ball into right. And who's going to get it? No one's going to get it. So Duvall, that's when you know you're going good. And he's going good right now.
That ball ball goes straight off his bat. You talk about launch angle and that type of thing right there. I'm sure there's somebody out there right now looking at whatever metrics there are that you call that and say, well, that bat speed and the ball exit speed and the launch angle, that ball is caught 94% of the time, something like that. So when they do fall in, you're happy with that 6%.
Mm-hmm. The inning will continue. The Reds have their third hit for Eugenio Suarez, who singled into center field his first time up. A number of day games around baseball, a travel day for most teams, wrapping up series today and starting others tomorrow or Friday. St. Louis finally got a win, besting the Nationals today 6-1.
That was
Only
Mike
the
Leake on the
third
mound
win
again.
of the year for the St. Louis Cardinals. Two and one to Suarez. And another bullet into center field. A perfect 2 for 2, both on singles to center for Eugenio. And now a big chance for Schebler. I mean, you wonder in a game like tonight, the way both pitchers are playing, and who knows, this game may end up being 9-8. But judging what we're seeing from both starters so far, you only get so many chances. And it might be 2 on, 2 out in the 4th inning where you got to make your hay. So this is a big at bat for Schebler.
Good point. And Schebler loves hitting the first pitch, and Nova has thrown everybody a fastball in the first pitch. So do you let it rip right here? And he first throws his first breaking ball. So Nova knows it's an important at bat also.
A little bit bigger crowd tonight, it appears, than we had last night. Had a real big crowd here on Monday night. Of course, a lot of eyeballs on the NHL playoffs here tonight. Down the left field line, room in the corner at the track to end the inning. 2 hits, 2 left. We remain scoreless in Pittsburgh.
do this every time he takes the mound, every half inning that he pitches. A giant A that he puts in with his spikes. That is his own initial. Amir, obviously. He says he does it because it gives him confidence. He wants to think, I own this mound and I'm going to brand it. He does it every time.
Well, if it works, stay with it. He has been the Reds minor league pitcher of the year each of the last 2 seasons. Overall, he's ranked as their #3 prospect behind third baseman Chris Senzel, their #1 pick a year ago, and Cody Reed. And Garrett will take it almost all the way himself. And that takes care of the leadoff man Mercer to start this 4th inning of a scoreless game. Reds going for a 3-game sweep. Came away a winner in the opener. Big story in that game. 7 perfect innings from the Reds bullpen. The trio of Michael Lorenzen, Cody Reed, and Wandy Peralta in a 7-1 win. Last night needed more bullpen, and they got it. 5 innings of 4-hit shutout baseball by the quintet of Cingrani, Storin, Peralta, Wood, Iglesias in a 6-2 victory.
Well, I can tell you that the quality of the arms that have come out of that Reds bullpen was a hot topic of conversation around the Pirates batting cage the last couple of days. Today especially. First night, okay, you run 3 guys out there, they do a good job. Of course, good job means 21 in a row. But on top of that, what they saw last night, the quality of the arms was like eyebrows raising. And the Pirates weren't afraid to talk about it.
Well, the only member of the Reds bullpen the Pirates have not seen in this series is Robert Stevenson. And he's got a pretty good arm, too. I know his first game did not go very well. Some people get a little down on a #1 pick. We're not ready to do that up here. Three and 2 now on Starling Marte. Garrett has not walked a batter tonight. He walked 2 in 6 innings in his major league debut. Let's see what he comes after. Marte struck him out his first time up. Threw him 3 straight changeups. Came with a fastball this time. Going to be a tough play for Suarez, and a throw is in time. What a play again by Suarez. Boy, he is really starting to become an outstanding defender at third.
Once he read the cadence of the ball coming through a third baseman, and it's way different than it is when you play shortstop. I mean, he has just become so confident, so good. I mean, he's a converted shortstop playing third base, so you've got a terrific athlete out there anyway. And he just makes a very difficult play, just looks silky smooth.
Pulled the string on McCutchen, looking fastball. First pitch, didn't get it, got a change and waved right through it. He grounded out to Suarez, ending the opening inning. 2 strikeouts, no walks, 1 hit allowed by Garrett. This is such a beautiful venue here at PNC Park. Just the ballpark itself, I would take our ballpark over this ballpark, the inside of it all day, every day, as a fan, to walk around the concourses in the different areas. But the view here is really spectacular. It looks fake. Hooked into left field. And this will be a 2-base hit for McCutchen, his first extra base hit of this young season.
Well, you can see the spotting that we have shown you on our box tracks where all those pitches are, and Garrett is staying out of the center of the zone. That's why he has been successful to date. This is the second hit the Pirates have had. Sometimes even good pitches get hit.
Well, here's a fella who owns the other hit against Garrett tonight. That's Freese. He lined one into center field his first time up, strike one. Breaking ball misses. 1 ball, 1 strike on the Pirate third baseman.
I really like the pitch calling that Barnhart has done, you know, so far, especially in Amir's first game in St. Louis and in this one. And Amir is just throwing what Barnhart is putting down.
Fastball, knee high, inside edge. 1-2.
All day long you live down there. That's your safe zone. That's a spot where Major League Baseball would like to raise the strike zone just a couple of inches from the hollow of the knees. And they made that change actually from the kneecaps to the hollow of the knees back in the 90s. And they, of course, had a lot of teams go out and try to get sinker ball pitchers that would live down there around the knees. But when Amir throws it down there, he's got action.
What's big pitch here? He missed. He went 3-2 on Freese the first time, and that's when he threw a fastball and Freese smoked it. So after getting ahead 1-2, he's missed on 2 in a row. And a count full again. Runner at second. We're scoreless last of the 4th inning. 2 out. And Tucker Barnhart wants to call timeout.
It may be as simple as saying, hey, how do you feel about throwing a changeup right here? We don't want to walk this guy, but you know, at the same time, you have a base open here and a very tough right-handed hitter at the plate. Or he could be saying, I know how to get this guy out, but don't ask me till I get back behind the plate. I'll surprise you.
3-2. Good pitch there.
You know, because half the responsibility of the catcher is to take them, whatever the edge is, away from the catcher or the pitcher. Just relax him a little bit. He may run out there and tell him a joke and have nothing to do with what kind of pitch we're going to throw here. Different catchers have different personalities for that.
3-2 again on David Freese. Got him swinging to end the inning. So Tucker did know how to get him out. 3 strikeouts for Amir Garrett. For the unlimited baseball break. Brought to you by T-Mobile. All right, some oddities to begin the year. We know about the Reds. They've thrown 3 shutouts. They did in their first 6 games. The entire rest of the National League has 2. The Angels are 3-2 when trailing going into the 9th inning. Look at the rest of Major League Baseball. 3 wins total. And George Springer, 4 leadoff home runs already this year. So some odd news and notes. First pitch swinging Zach Kozak as the Reds have 7, 8, 9 batting in the 5th of a scoreless game against Ivan Nova. Reds have 4 hits. They've left 3. Pirates have 2 hits. They've left 1. Kozak bounced into a fielder's choice on a ground ball to Mercer, ending the Cincinnati 2nd inning. The biggest threat for either team came in each team's last at bat. Pirates got a 2-out double by McCutchen in the just completed bottom of the 4th. Reds in the top of the inning had 2 on, 2 out. Schebler flied out to the warning track. This should be extra bases for Zach, and he'll make the turn and go in for his 2nd double of the season. So welcome back Zach Kozak after missing the last 2 games with a sore left wrist.
He hurt that wrist diving for a ball. Had nothing to do with hitting. You know, he had a really good swing on his first swing in this at bat. Hit a line drive that just went foul, and he went right back to the same swing as Nova continues to try to keep the ball on the inner part of the plate. Now he just got that ball up, and Kozak, well, he loves it right there.
So this becomes a very important bat for Barnhart and the Reds. You have the pitcher spot waiting on deck. See if Tucker can get him in. Fouled out of play, strike 1. Tucker singled to center field his first at bat. Tucker is yet to knock in a run this season, and right now would be a good time for number 1. And if you're going to get 1, why not get 2? We're talking about a hockey game being played tonight here in downtown Pittsburgh, and a lot of big Penguin fans in this town. Of course, they're playing in the opening game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. This ball is scalded into right center field, and this will get him an RBI. So Tucker Barnhart has made it a 1-0 Reds lead. Back-to-back doubles by Kozak and Barnhart here in the 5th.
That's 2 of them on the night for Tucker Barnhart. And he'll trade places with Kozak after he bangs this ball right off the right center field wall, right down Broadway. So Nova now, the last couple of batters have gotten that pitch up, you know, thigh high, and a nice level swing by Barnhart drives a run in and puts him in scoring position. Nicely done.
All right, so now Amir Garrett.
Hey, you know, it's amazing really, Tom. We talked about it between innings, but how these pitchers have spent so much time in spring training working on their bunting. And in my estimation, the problem with that is that they're bunting off a machine and not live pitching at game speed. It's easy to bunt off a machine if you know it's going to throw it right in the same square every time. When you get up there and there's infielders running in on you and pitchers with live fastballs that are running one way or another, it's a whole different story to lay a bunt down. It's not that easy. First of all, you got to move way up in the batter's box. He's not nearly far enough up in the box.
So then, based on what you just said, and you're a guy that's, you know,
gunning. He's sneaking up a little bit now.
And it's still another bad bunt. And the Reds catch a break because the throw took the third baseman Freese right into the runner, and the ball was jarred loose. We're going to look at a replay, but I want to get back to something you just touched on in a minute.
Garrett drops it for the second time right in front of home plate. And Freese knocked it down, but it came out of his glove when Barnhart came in there.
Well, they have to give him a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they don't. They gave him a fielder's
choice.
choice and an error on the third baseman. All right, I want to get back to something because of what you just said and the catcher's out visiting the mound. Are you suggesting then that perhaps teams should change the way they practice pitchers' buntings?
Well, yeah, I am. And now,
any ideas?
It's easy for me to say up here, because we're way up here, and I'm not a coach.
No.
You've
been down there.
As an observation, I got better as a bunter when I was asked to bunt in games, and I faced live pitching. And I think that with all those minor league pitchers down there who have to get their work in on the side, why not take a few that have pretty good control and send them over to the big league camp and send your pitchers up there to bunt off those guys a couple times a week, where now they're going to bunt off sliders and they're going to bunt off running fastballs, 4-seamers and 2-seamers. And they're actually going to get a feel of what it's like to put a bunt down at game speed instead of off a machine. The machine is cranked up pretty good, but it's straight as a string and it's right there every time.
Hey, look, you've been down there before. It's not like you're just sitting up here making some, half-cocked evaluation or suggestion that you don't know anything about. You've been there.
Well, baseball is one of those games where you don't practice it at full speed. Everything you do is as practice speed.
2-0 on Billy Hamilton. And there's a base hit into right field. It'll bring in another run. So the Reds go double-double, catch a break on a bad bunt and an error by the third baseman. And the Reds are making a pay, a base hit by Hamilton. 2-0 Cincinnati with 2 on and nobody out.
Well, it's one thing being given opportunities. It's a whole nother thing when you take advantage of those. And that's what the Reds have done early on. Every time they're given an extra out, maybe an extra base on a base play. Now, Billy Hamilton, did he just signal to Amir Garrett and tell him to get ready to start running? I don't want to have to catch you. Amir can probably run a little bit.
Oh, I don't think there's any debate about that.
He looks more like a 440 guy, though.
You're right, he does. Or a guy with the hurdles.
Uh-huh.
Edwin Moses, like body. Dayton, Ohio native. The great Edwin Moses.
Do you write down certain names on your scorecard and try to work them into a game?
No,
night?
I just every time I drive up through Dayton, I see that exit right there by the University of Dayton.
You're right, yeah.
I mean, you talk about one of the guys, and for a lot of people, they're not old enough to remember him. I mean, he was in hurdles what Usain Bolt is in the 100-meter dash. He was invincible. All right, let's see here, Peraza. He's looking for something to hammer here, 2-0. Takes a strike on the outside corner. A little surprised about that. Got Votto on deck. This has the makings, potentially anyway, of a big inning. And that is a fair ball into the corner. Amir Garrett will trot home. Billy Hamilton racing around. They're going to wave him home. And he will score as they miss a cutoff man. 2-run double by Peraza. And it's a 4-0 Cincinnati lead. Boy, the Reds got it going on.
Well, you were right about Peraza waiting for something to lay the hammer on. He just waited one extra pitch to do that. Boy, everything seems to have been just hit hard in this inning, and Nova is just getting the ball up. I mean, he's throwing the ball waist high to these guys now. You just can't live up there.
Well, you don't know how long it's going to last. But I'll tell you one thing. Right now, this is a fun team to watch play baseball. Everybody up and down this roster is contributing in some form or fashion. And it doesn't matter whether it's offense, defense, which we've seen great plays, 3 or 4 of them already in the game tonight, or on the mound, in some cases starters. In this series, it's been exclusively relievers. But everybody is doing something well right now.
And doing it right. Decisions are being made that have turned out to be right.
Votto will make an out, but it's the first out of the inning, and it does advance a runner from second to third. Obviously, that's not Joey's goal at this point, but it's a productive out.
You know, the other thing this run that the Reds are having right now will do, especially for a young ball club, is it'll give them confidence to look across the field in the other dugout and say, hey, you know, these guys aren't that much better than us. They may not even be better than us at all. We can play with any of them at any time. And if, as long as you have that nice, quiet confidence, it takes a little winning to get that going. They feel that now.
Let's see now if Duvall, who has 7 runs batted in, second most on the team to Scooter Gennett, can play Peraza from third. The Pirates have their infield in. 1 out. Foul tip, and it's a ball and 2 strikes. Pirates have activity in their bullpen. Antonio Bastardo, a left-hander. We saw him in the opening game of this series. I mean, Nova only allowed 4 hits, no runs, no walks, and a strikeout through the front 4 innings. But here in the 5th, consecutive doubles to start it, a misplay defensively, a single to drive in a run by Hamilton, 2-run double by Peraza, and now Duvall with a chance to make it a 5-run inning. 2-2. Runner at third with 1 out. Broken bat. And that's the second out of the inning. It's a good pitch right there by Nova.
Third baseman, Eugenio Suarez.
Not sure Nova's all that crazy about facing Suarez again. 2 at bats, 2 bullets to center field for base hits.
Well, he's trying to get the ball inside the Suarez and hasn't been able to get it in there far enough. Both hits pretty much back up the middle.
Suarez with 2 hits tonight has reached double figures, 11 hits in his first 26 at bats this season. Then you throw in the 5 walks we brought up earlier. Nearly hit with a pitch, a ball and a strike. Look at these last 5 games for Suarez. 2 home runs, 5 knocked in, walked 4 times, throw in a double, 9 hits. Mercy. We had a good rip there. 1-2. hitting over. 8 come to the plate for score.
To know Amir Garrett. We know about his basketball exploits, but did you know that he played Little League Baseball in Las Vegas against the likes of Chris Bryant, Bryce Harper, and Joey Gallo? He told me yesterday he got tons of shout-outs from everyone on social media and those famous people that he knows. Also played high school basketball. DeLon Wright, who's now at the Toronto Raptors. Nigel Williams-Goss, who's now at Gonzaga. And friends with some guy named Westbrook. He's a pretty good player in the NBA as well. I actually got him tickets during spring training to an NBA game there. So he's got some friends in high places.
How about that? That Westbrook's unbelievable. Man, saw him play in person last year out in Phoenix when we were in Arizona for spring training myself. And golly day, is he something. Of course, Cincinnati's very own Oscar Robertson's got a lot of pub because of him this year and breaking the all-time double-doubles mark in a single season. Triple-doubles, I'm sorry. You were saying about that changeup.
That's a triple-double right there, that changeup. I mean, he'll back it up with 1 or even 2, maybe even 3 in a row. And I bet he'll do that before too long. Just because you can rear back and throw hard doesn't mean you have to do it on every pitch.
Nice pickup by Cozart. 1 out.
Cervelli's hurting.
Yep.
I'm not sure. I mean, he'll play through a lot of pain. He's a tough guy. But he hit that on 1 hop. I mean, a bullet shot right at the shortstop and barely made it to first base. That's a broken wheel. And with the position he plays, might not be getting better anytime soon.
No, you're right. Interesting little twist here about Cervelli. You know, that song he had we brought up earlier, that's Amore, that was made famous by Dean Martin. Oh, what a singer and character he was. I did not realize, though, that he was from Steubenville, Ohio, Dean Martin. Never knew that. It's not too far down the track from here.
Homer Rich Donnelly.
That's right.
former Pittsburgh Pirate third base coach for a long, long time, and then he followed Jimmy Leland up to Detroit.
Amir will handle that for the second out of the inning, and he was part of Jim Leland's staff on the World Baseball Classic United States Championship team. In fact, we saw Jim Leland before the game. He still makes his home in the area. Still works in baseball both for the commissioner's office and for the Detroit Tigers. And he's from Perrysburg, Ohio, which is right up there near the Ohio-Michigan border. And part of his duties working for the Tigers, he will go in and watch the Toledo Mud Hens and some other teams up and around the Cleveland area. So he still spends a lot of time in his home Buckeye State. That's pretty cool, though. Dean Martin. He was known as Dino Paul Cressetti growing up as a youngster in Steubenville. 2-0 on Josh Harrison. Another Buckeye himself. I mean, they're all over the place. A Princeton Viking and a University of Cincinnati Bearcat is Josh Harrison. And there's a base hit into left field. Calling all kids. We remind you this Saturday's a big day. It's Kids Opening Day presented by Frisch's Big Boy. That's this Saturday. Now there's a free block party very early along the banks featuring a Reds player parade. Get down there. It starts at 9 o'clock. Got a lot going on. If you want additional information on all that's happening, visit Reds.com. Kids Opening Day this Saturday at Great American Ballpark. Frazier first pitch swinging, struck out his first time up, and Amir Garrett. 11 shutout innings as a big league pitcher.
Time to get your game on. The Reds return home tomorrow to face the Brewers for the first time this season. Reds Live kicks it off at 6:30. I will have a sit-down conversation with Bronson Arroyo as he makes his second start of the season right here in your home of the Reds, Fox Sports Ohio, and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. It'll also be the first time that Scooter Gennett gets to see his former team. Brewers off to a 3-5 start, last in the National League in starters ERA, just over 5. And a couple of new names you'll see: Eric Thames, Travis Shaw. Reds and Brew Crew, first of 4 tomorrow night right here in the mighty FSO.
Travis Shaw batting in the cleanup spot for the Milwaukee Brewers. Last time I saw Travis, he was about 12 years old, hanging out with his dad in the Reds dugout. What a great family. 1 pitch, 1 out for Ivan Nova as Schebler rolls one over to Josh Harrison at second base. And now Zach Cozart, 1 for 2, hit a double his last time and sparked the rally that the Reds ended up scoring 4. in the 5th, and he takes a fastball for a strike.
We'll see if Cozart can start a one-out rally rather than a leadoff rally in this 1 inning later from the 4-run 5th. Well, you hated to see Cozart with any kind of injury, naturally, anybody, but the way he had started the season, 9 hits in his first 20 at bats. Then all of a sudden you got a sore wrist, you miss a couple of games, and you know, sometimes you can come back and perhaps have lost your timing a little bit. He was retired his first at bat of the night, but hit a rocket into left field in the 5th for a double. Cervelli for the second out. Tucker knocked in the first run of the game, driving a ball to the very base of the wall in right center field. His first run batted in this season. And he hits it in the same spot. And McCutchen had him shaded that way. Bottom of the 6th. Coming up, Reds in front, 4-0. On Fox Sports Ohio, brought to you by Cincinnati Children's, changing the outcome together. And by your local Ford dealer. Ford, go further. The MLB.com ballpark app. You'll want to check this out. It's your mobile companion when you go to Great American Ballpark or if you visit another ballpark. The ballpark app complements and personalizes your trip with mobile ticket delivery, exclusive offers, interactive games, and much more. Download the ballpark app tonight. Amir Garrett, 5 shutout innings. He's allowed 3 hits. Coming off 6 innings of 2-hit shutout baseball in his major league debut. He faces Phil Gosselin, who comes up to pinch hit for Nova, and he will foul out Tovado to start the inning. He's been on his game again tonight.
He sure has. Amir Garrett marks the mound and then marks his territory around home plate. I mean, he has really been able to get him off his fastball, changing speeds, throwing that changeup down. That combined with the fact that the Reds have played superb defense. He hasn't really been threatened all game long. He's given up only 3 hits. One was a leadoff single. That was in the 2nd inning. That was ended up by a double play to kill the inning. Then a 2-out double and a 2-out single last inning, and that is it. So 4 runs right now. Looks like it's 10 runs the way Amir Garrett is firing it up there.
Let's hope he continues on that pace. He now goes through the batting order for a 3rd time. Mercer led off the game with a line drive to short, and then a comebacker to Garrett in the 4th.
He's only thrown 70 pitches. I mean, it just goes to show you when you throw the ball over the plate with a little bit of action down in a good part of the zone, you let your defenders earn some money too. He has not gone over 20 pitches in any one inning.
Well, again, you just sit here and watch. It's something we made reference to Rookie Davis last night. And a very deliberate pace on the mound. I mean, you look at Garrett tonight, his defense, these guys are in the game. Not only because it's a 4-0 game, it's just the pace of the game. Garrett gets the ball, gets on the rubber, doesn't waste any time, and he's coming after people.
Well, the one thing that he might do, and we haven't really seen him get into any trouble yet, you know, your coach to slow down a little bit when you have runners on base and be a little more deliberate. But right now, without anybody on base, it looks like he can't wait to get the ball back.
2-2 pitch. This down and in. He's only averaging a little more than 3 pitches per batter so far in this one. Ball hit hard, but that's a big part of the ballpark. I mean, that's almost straightaway left field. It's 379 feet. The power alley in left center is the deepest part of this ballpark at 410. So that's just a big, big area out there in this ballpark. You know, you can buy a cheapie down the left field line, but once you have that first, maybe, what, 40, 50 feet of fence that starts to go out.
Yeah, you combine that with the fact that we're still springtime and it's cool. Ball's not carrying very well. Takes a pretty good wallop to hit one out of here.
Foul out of play by Starling Marte.
You know, one of the things, sometimes it's interesting to watch a pitcher and see where he misses the strike zone. And where Garrett seems to be missing the strike zone is down and in. Not up and away like he's flying his front side wide open, trying to overthrow, much in the way that Glasnow the other day had a horrible time doing that.
Let's see you later. Boy, he is wearing out Marte. 4 strikeouts for Garrett. 3 of his innings have gone 1, 2, 3. Game summary. Reds finally breaking through in a scoreless game in the fifth. A leadoff double by Cozart. He would score on a double by Tucker Barnhart. After an error, Billy Hamilton came to the plate. Picked up his first hit of the night on a single in the right. That would score Tucker. And then Jose Peraza on a 2-1 pitch. Doubled down the left field line, scoring Amir Garrett and Hamilton all the way from first. And so far, that's more than enough for the big left-hander.
Well, he's just been firing strike after strike and unpredictably changing fastballs with change-ups and sliders. And he's got the Pirates just eating right out of his hand right now. Well, the good news for Amir, he's not going to be asked to bunt. He's going to be able to swing the bat this time.
But I would imagine they're going to have him working on that bunting in between this outing and his next, which will come in the opening game of the Baltimore series. He is a guy who will benefit as you look at Antonio Bastardo, the new pitcher. He will benefit from the only off day the Reds have for quite a while, and that will be next Monday. Brewers are in town for 3. The Reds need to find a pitcher for this Sunday. In case you didn't hear the news, Rookie Davis got hit with that pitch last night as Garrett has gone swinging, and he's been placed on the 10-day disabled list. Barrett Ashton was brought back up from the minor leagues, but the Reds will need a starting pitcher, figures to be Cody Reed, to pitch on Sunday afternoon, Easter Sunday.
Yeah, that's where it got Rookie Davis yesterday. It's not a long-term injury, but I thought it was a very good addition to the rules that the players and owners got together on the new CBA, which instituted a 10-day disabled list. And it's perfect time for Rookie Davis maybe to take a few extra days, because if you can't throw your bullpen in between starts, and he probably can't, his throwing day would be tomorrow. Yeah, let his arm heal up a little bit.
Billy turning around to bat from the right side for the first time in the game tonight. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time. Nope, he faced Bastardo in the 9th inning and got a base hit against him. His only at bat against a left-hander in this series.
A lot of aspiring Dean Martins in the crowd tonight. He must have heard your story.
Well, this is a place, I think, that actually is where the woos that happened late in the game actually started up. It wasn't Cincinnati, it was actually Pittsburgh, or so I'm told. Lined into center, and that's the second out of the inning. So we've heard it the last couple of nights, but we're really hearing it in the 7th inning tonight.
Second baseman, Jose Peraza.
Told you Milwaukee coming into town tomorrow night. They're playing at the same pace the Reds are playing at so far here tonight. The Brewers got a win over the Blue Jays last night, and they're in the top of the 7th inning at Sky Dome, and a 2-0 lead for the Brew Crew. San Diego beat Colorado earlier today 6-0. The Mets are rolling again. Well, they are just pounding the baseball. They lead Philadelphia 5-0 in the 5th inning tonight. Cubbies giving away their World Series rings tonight. I tell you, they have handled as an organization their first game and raising the flag and the banner and their World Series rings tonight as well as any organization can. That's an infield single for Peraza. I saw where they did a lot of research to bring in fans that would give the players their World Series rings. I mean, fans in their 80s, fans in their early 90s, and fans that have just lived and died in their various, research. I don't know how they compiled it all or to figure out which fans to bring down, but I'm sure it was quite a night tonight.
Yeah.
So, good for them.
I understand the rings they're giving out to all the players and associated people in the organization have 108 diamonds in the ring and a hidden billy goat.
How nice is that?
Yeah.
One interesting note in that Colorado shutout today, San Diego 6-0 over the Rockies. That was the first time Colorado's been shut out at home in 120 games. That's the next longest such streak since the Reds had that string from 2011 to 2013. They went 126 straight games at home without being shut out. Told you we'll see the Orioles next week. They're trying to go to 5-2 tonight. They are blasting Boston, but long way to go in that one. 9-4 in the fourth inning. Two and one on Joey Votto. Joey 0 for 3, is fly to left, bounced out to first and grounded out to second in the fifth. First time in a while I can remember Votto in a 3-1 count. See if he can start to make his way out of this very, very early season slump. He takes ball 4. Just a third walk this year taken by Votto.
Left fielder Adam Duvall.
Adam Duvall, 1 of 3. Duvall over the last 4 games of this road trip, and the Reds have only lost 1 game on it. Has 7 hits and 14 at bats, 2 home runs, 5 knocked in, has scored 5. That's just in the last 4 games for Adam Duvall. He has 2 on with 2 out and a 2-0 count, looking for something to lay into here. Boy, he took a hearty cut and fouled it back. Runner takes off for third, and they'll let him go. That's Peraza, his 4th stolen base of the season. Why not? They're going to give it to you.
And that's what they were going to do, too. With the right-handed hitter up there, there's no way that David Freese is even going to leave his position to maybe throw him out and have a ball dribble right by him where he just was. I'm not sure what's going on with Antonio Bastardo. But he has single-handedly changed the pace of this game.
But you brought it up earlier, Chris. It doesn't matter if it's a pitcher on the mound or the batter at the plate. Unless Major League Baseball starts putting some teeth behind the mandate of wanting to increase the pace of play, meaning a fine, or start giving guys, you know, in this case, give Duvall ball 4 because of how much time Bastardo is taking, nobody's going to change. What's interesting is when you see the young guys coming up that for the last couple of years have had a pitch clock. Amir Garrett's had a pitch clock in the minor leagues. So maybe that's the way it slowly starts to change, because once they get here, guys that have been around for a while, forget it. There's ball 4 to Duvall, and they are loaded.
Yeah, Bastardo started the inning out easily enough. He got a strikeout out of Garrett, a line drive out to center field from Billy Hamilton. Now he's promptly walked 3 in a row, and that's Ray Searage.
Well, we've heard a lot of great things about Ray Searage as a pitching coach over the last number of years. Some of the reclamation projects, you know, he had. Some of those guys stayed in a pretty good groove. A couple of other guys that had initial success sort of fell by the wayside the last couple of years. The Jeff Locks of the world, and now all of a sudden he will be challenged with the youngsters in this Pirates starting rotation now.
Yeah, he sure will. He's a very good pitching coach, Searage is. But the Pirates for a while had a great tandem of great pitching coaches. Ray Searage at the major league level and Jim Benedict in the minor league level. And Benedict has moved on to the Florida Marlins, or the Miami Marlins. In fact, we talked about it last night. Trevor Martin, who pitched for the Pirates last night, was compensation for Benedict going to the Marlins and essentially running their minor league pitching operation and major league operation too, kind of overseeing the whole pitching of the Marlins. Very highly thought of, and they worked very well together.
2-0 on Eugenio Suarez.
Those are the kind of hires in an organization that it costs you less than a backup infielder. Way less.
Way less.
And it has a terrific long-term effect on your organization if you get the right people.
Bastardo has fallen behind 3-0. He allowed a 2-out infield single to Peraza. He's walked 2 batters in a row. And now a pitch away from walking in a run.
Looked like he took a little bit off to get that one in there.
All right, 3-1 on Eugenio Suarez. Tardy on a fastball. A little surprise there.
Yeah, but that was on the outer part of the plate. It looks like he was waiting a long time trying to drive that. Opposite field. I mean, right now, the way that Suarez looks at the plate, I mean, he's very still, but when that pitcher starts to move, watch him drop those hands just a little bit. And he is on just about everything.
Suarez has 2 hits and 3 at-bats tonight, all 3 prior trips against the starter Nova. Here we go, 6 innings, allowed 8 hits, 4 runs. They all came in the Reds' 5th, 3 earned. Struck out the first batter, didn't strike out another.
I say drop his hands. He doesn't drop his hands at all. He gets them back just a little bit of a load back there.
Bases loaded, 2 outs, runners get started, 3-2 delivery. And that ball is headed to the left center field gap and will clear the bases. Eugenio Suarez, a 3-run double. And the Reds blow this thing wide open at 7-0. What a year it has been for Suarez.
Boy, he just jumps all over this pitch. He saw fastball after fastball after fastball from Bastardo. I think that was the 6th one he had seen in that at bat. Before he finally centers it and drives them all in.
Well, that's all for Bastardo. And this will be our Skyline Chili. Call to the bullpen.
Of the Cincinnati Reds. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Billy Hatcher Fan Club in town. Charleston, West Virginia, the Chris Sabo chapter. Those guys are having a good time tonight.
And so is Billy.
Sure is.
He's getting a sore arm out there. He's waved 7 of them in so far tonight.
First pitch swinging. This ball scalded into left center by Schebler. And that's off the top of the wall. And Schebler in with an RBI double. So welcome to the game, Felipe Rivera. And the Reds lead 8-0. He just missed getting it out of here. 410 feet out there. This is long gone at GABP.
Oh, you're not kidding about that. Rivera just pipes one for him, and Schebler loves the first pitch, especially when it's a fastball. Guy's strong. Really strong.
Right on the top of the wall. Look at that. Felipe looks like he's got kind of a bunny tail back there with that. I assume it's a little bleach blonde or something in the back of his hair.
You got a keen eye, partner.
Well, Easter's right around the corner, so who knows?
I'll tell you what, when this guy was throwing the ball with the Washington Nationals, very, very highly thought of. He came over from the Nationals in the Mark Melanson trade last year, right at the trading deadline. he and another left-handed pitcher named Taylor Hearn in that deal. You got to try that look, Tom. How would that go over there in
Believe
in
me,
TP?
I've tried it the other way once. It didn't go too good. I'm just staying with what I have now.
Well, if you're going to have a long thing in the back there, you need an earring too. Maybe a diamond stud.
Thinking about it. Definitely. I like that, though.
Well, if he
And that's really not even blonde. I mean, that's almost white. Because, you know, closer to blonde would be the color that Pirates P. I mean, this is that's closer to the white on the uni. I know, now that I look at it, you might be right. A little more blonde.
You know, if he can establish that as a brand and end up being a very good pitcher, it'd be a great giveaway.
There's no doubt. I mean, you start with a bobblehead.
Yeah.
Then you do the hat with the little.
Oh, the hat, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'm
for
talking
sure.
about.
Oh, that'd be,
Like they did the Bronson Arroyo hat
Right.
years ago.
That'd be big league. No doubt. Well, he keeps throwing sliders like that, they'll have one of those. 8-0, a 4-run seventh. Fireworks Friday at the ballpark. This coming Friday night, Reds and the Brewers for only $12 you can get down there. We'll have the big fireworks show coming up after the game presented by Miracle Grow. Call 513-381-REDS or visit Reds.com. Friday night in the big city. Reds are on tomorrow night, though. Tickets are available the entire homestand. So you got Thursday and Friday nights, 7:10. 1:10 Saturday, that's kids opening day. 1:10 Sunday, Easter Sunday. And then we have an off day Monday. Night games against the Baltimore Orioles. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7:10 starts. Friday night, the Cubbies in town. That'll be a 7:10 start. And then a 1:10 start Saturday and Sunday next weekend against Chicago. I tell you, you know, Chris, that I'm not a Twitter guy. I mean, I don't write anything on it. I don't ever go on it and read it. You put it up sometimes, you know, when in the booth every now and again, not much, but It's my understanding there are a couple people out there that have like fake accounts with my name on them, and they'll send out funny things from time to time. Well, I got to tell you, whoever you are,
they're kind of funny.
Pretty good stuff tonight, I got to admit. I mean, pretty good. Pretty good. 1-2 the count. Make sure my bosses know that's not mine. Slow bouncer, Suarez. That took a funny bounce on him. Had some spin, little English coming off the bat of McCutchen. He was going to try and barehand the ball, but then it sort of took a funny hop to his right.
It's the first bounce that has not gone the Reds' way all night.
Third baseman, David Freese.
All right, so young Mr. Garrett. That's his 82nd pitch of the night. You know, he's had 2 of the last 3 half innings where he's had to sit down a long time on that bench. Reds scored 4 runs in the 5th. He was up moving around in that inning because he was running the bases.
You know, and I don't really believe, Tom, I don't buy into the fact that when pitchers get, maybe older pitchers do, and maybe when it's really cold outside, but for the most part, a young guy like Garrett, I mean, he'll physically stay loose. It's all about keeping your mental edge. You sit in there for a while, you see all these runs score, you're up 8-0. You have a tendency to just relax a little bit. And you can't do that. You've got to stay right on the edge the way you started the ball game. And he is staying right down. You know what we're going to show you next time when he pitches is a graph of where all, like a heat zone of where all his pitches are, because I'd love to see that now. I mean, he is just throwing the ball down in the zone almost every time. And when he misses, he's down around the dirt.
Three and one to David Freese. Reds have activity in their bullpen for the first time. I suspect, and it's exactly what we were talking about in between innings, the logical choice to get up first probably, because it's a weary bullpen right now, especially the first 2 games of this series, would be Blake Wood, and I believe that's who's down there throwing now, or maybe Aston is up. He was just brought up. Fly ball right, hit a long way by Freese, and that ball's going to carry out of here. It's a short part of this ballpark. So the first 2 runs given up in the career of Amir Garrett, starting his 13th inning. He gives up an infield hit and then a 2-run home run to David Freese.
Yeah, let it be noted that it's an opposite field 2-run home run. You got to give the credit to David Freese right here. Yeah, the pitch was pretty much right down the middle. You see the reaction by Garrett, but still. Takes a man to hit it opposite field that far.
Well, let's see if Amir now can kind of put it back together and retire these next 3.
Well, that 4 spot the Reds scored in the 7th inning. Pretty big number. Or else you'd be leading only by 2 right now. Be a whole different ball game.
And it's still not over yet. I mean, there's nobody out here in the 7th. We've seen stranger things. So a little cue shot foul off the bat of Cervelli, 0 for 2.
You know, we've talked about Amir Garrett down around the knees all night. I did get a question on Twitter, a serious question on Twitter. What, you know, we refer to what is the hollow of the knees. And if you're just sitting down, you just put your hand over your knees and you'll feel wrists on the other side of your patella tendon, 2 little hollow spots right there. And that's the bottom of the strike zone, the bottom part of that hollow of your knees. So even if you're not too good at anatomy, Mr. H, there you go.
Mr. H.
First baseman, Josh Bell.
That is what we call a combioso. And a great reaction.
Ground ball to short. And Cozart will take care of Bell. So one more out to go in this 7th inning.
Second baseman, Josh Harrison.
One and one to count on Josh Harrison. And hit with a pitch. Tried to come down and in on him. Came down and in.
That extends Josh Harrison's on-base streak to something like, well, not that one, but when he got a base hit earlier in the game, something like 23 games in a row, going all the way back to last August, if I'm not mistaken. He's had quite a run of it, but so has Amir Garrett. What a great night, young man.
Well, he got 2 more outs than he did his first major league game. Gives up his first 2 runs, but he has a 6-run lead, leaving here in the 7th. What a great job by this young man, Amir Garrett. Moment of the game, a whole pile of it in the night again from Amir Garrett.
Look at where he is in the zone. I mean, you just got to love his location. And the confidence he has throwing that changeup. Reds are on to something here.
Well, he showed up in his spring training, ranked as a number 3 prospect in the Reds organization, as Blake Wood now takes over on the mound. Wood had some bad luck last night. He came into the game, he gave up a clean single the first batter he faced, but then he got a strikeout. This was in the 8th inning, and then he allowed a little pop-up straight down the left field line off the bat of Harrison that dropped right on the line fair. And at that point, Brian Price made the decision to go bring in his closer, Raisel Iglesias, who was able to shut him down the final inning in 2/3, notching his 3rd save of this season. Scoreless innings at 12 to start a career. And that makes Reds history for Amir Garrett. That must mean that Wayne Simpson did not have a very good trip out the second time he took the mound, because we were bringing up earlier how Wayne Simpson was one of the three along with Garrett, and you know, to go 6 or more scoreless innings in a major league debut of the Reds, the other being Chief Johnson. Wayne Simpson threw a complete game shutout. There's strike 3 called. Pirates get the home run by Freese. We're off to the 8th. The Reds lead 8-2.
Here in Pittsburgh, Permane Brothers sandwiches, famous for putting coleslaw and fries right on the sandwich. Ask some of the Reds players, have you ever been to Permane Brothers?
I'd be a fan of that, yeah. Yeah, I like French fries, and you know, coleslaw's got mayonnaise in it, right? So it's got to enhance the flavor.
I do like a lot of different flavors in one, so I might like it.
Ooh, that sounds really good. Maybe I'll have to check that out this year.
I think it's good. It's probably a lot more hype than there should be, but I think it's just a bunch of crap stuffed on a sandwich.
Not many have been, but as you saw, there's some willing to try it out. I asked Tom and Chris, what do you think of coleslaw and fries right on the sandwich?
I'm all a fan of coleslaw. I mean, I love fries. I'm not sure about a sandwich, but hey, I'd give it a shot.
Hey, I thought the Reds had a whole new nutrition program for these guys. And that if you're going to eat the Primantis, you got to like sneak out the back door, send a clubby out there with a couple of bucks in his hand and say, don't tell anybody.
That's right.
I'm going in the restroom to have this sandwich.
Got to say it right.
Well, whatever they're eating the right thing.
It's sandwich here in Pittsburgh. Sandwich.
Sandwich. And if you've ever had one, Jim Day, and I know you have, don't you wear all of it on your clothes after you eat it? I mean, it's impossible to eat and stay dry.
It's very messy. I would recommend even some silverware, perhaps.
Daniel Hudson came over during the offseason from Arizona. At one time, a very highly touted starting pitcher for the Diamondbacks, and then went through a couple of years of being unable to pitch, serious arm injuries. He was able to come back. It's nice to see he's out there pitching again.
Well, not just a serious arm injury, but not one, but 2 different Tommy John surgeries. In fact, Daniel Hudson was the main character in Jeff Passan's book, The Arm, where he chronicled essentially the decision to have Tommy John surgery again, the comeback trail, the emotional highs and lows that Daniel Hudson went through. I mean, he took him through, you know, everything, and really opened his heart to Passan when he wrote this book. Fascinating book. I mean, I've never had Tommy John surgery, but after reading the book, I felt like I could empathize with those pitchers that have. It is really interesting. You know who else was in that book a lot was Todd Coffey, who was another pitcher that had 2 Tommy John surgeries.
Arismendi Alcantara, the batter, as he'll hit for the pitcher Blake Wood. So Wood only comes in to face 1 batter tonight. I'm wondering if that's Robert Stevenson down there getting loose.
I think you're right, it is.
He is the only reliever who has not pitched in this series. He's not pitched since struggling on Saturday, his only outing of this season in St. Louis. A ball out of play off the bat of Alcantara.
You know, one of the stories in that book, The Arm, about Daniel Hudson that really struck me is that he still has an email that he received from the Diamondbacks assistant general manager in 2012 of a $15 million contract offer, and he turned it down. And right after that, a few months later, he blew out his arm, and that's when he needed Tommy John surgery again. And he kept that email, and he would read it throughout his recovery. Really touching.
Well, I mean, this guy was a big-time prospect.
Oh, absolutely big-time prospect.
But you know what? Unlike a lot of guys who never get offered that contract, but they have the surgery and they never get a shot to come back again, he's at least back in the big league.
Well, he's back in the big leagues, and when you're back in the big leagues now, making money comes kind of with the territory.
Alcantara gone on strikes.
I remember talking to a number of the people who were with the Diamondbacks about that time, and they just couldn't say enough nice things about Daniel Hudson.
Boy, this game was flying right along through the first 6 innings, and in the 7th it came to a grinding halt ever since. We're in the top of the 8th. Teams combined to score 6 runs in the 7th inning. And by the way, Tucker Barnard with that base hit a moment ago, he has a 3-hit game. 2 singles, a double, a run knocked in, and a run scored. Suarez 3 hits, a run scored, 3 batted in. Peraza 2 hits, 2 knocked in. And Amir Garrett doing it on the mound. And by the way, as a footnote, we showed you that note a moment ago about Amir Garrett. That is the longest scoreless streak to start a Reds career since 1974. I had made the comment about Wayne Simpson in 1970. This postdates the start of Wayne Simpson's career. Boy, and you're right, Chris, about those who saw Wayne Simpson. And I mean, people believe he could have been not only one of the Reds' all-time greats, but during his time in the big leagues, had he remained healthy, one of the game's greats. His first 4 starts in the major leagues, Wayne Simpson is a rookie in 1970. His first 4 starts, he gave up 2 runs.
We're going to hear Lee May talk about Wayne Simpson. It is amazing because he saw a lot of pitchers. Lee played for a long time.
In fact, of his first 4 starts as a major leaguer, he had 2 complete game shutouts. Mercer will handle the pop-up, 2 away in the inning. Well, we do it 30 minutes before the start of every game. We call it Reds Live, brought to you by Ray St. Clair Roofing, and we invite you to join us tomorrow at 6:30. We'll be back at Great American Ballpark. Reds Live begins at 6:30 Eastern. Our game coverage at 7. Brewers in town for the first of 4. Looking forward to seeing Bronson Arroyo out on the mound for the second time. He'll be opposed by right-hander Jimmy Nelson. We've seen a lot of him through the years. And Jim Day will talk to Bronson Arroyo in the pregame show tomorrow. Look forward to that. Peraza retired his first 2 times up, but then had a 2-run double in the 4-run 5th. And he started the 2-out rally in the 7th with a little dribbler down the third baseline that turned into an infield hit. After that hit, it would go walk, 3-run double, RBI single. And Peraza has his third straight hit.
First baseman, Joey Votto.
First 3-hit game of this season for Jose Peraza. And now Votto 0 for 3, a walk and a run scored. Three and 0. Two on, 2 out, 3 balls and a strike to Votto. Well, the runner Barnhart at second and the runner Peraza at first will get started here. 3 and 2 with 2 outs to Votto. Reds leading 8-2. We're in the 8th inning. That's in the air down the left field line and out of play. Milwaukee has finished off Toronto tonight. That game already in the books. 2-0. Brewers win it. So they win the 2-game series up there north of the border. And Votto a base hit into left field that'll drive in another run. That will score Barnhart to make it a 9-2 Reds lead. So nice to see Votto getting in on the act tonight.
Left fielder.
That is Votto's first hit in this series.
Maybe the start of something big.
Yes. Well, Ray Searage is starting to kill the spring grass going from the third base dugout to the mound in this series.
He might be saying, hey, you know, you may want to save something here because we do travel to Boston tomorrow for a day game, a makeup game against the Red Sox. And then after that, we go to Chicago. And after that, they go to St. Louis. And when the Pirates get home, they will host the New York Yankees. So the next 10 days or so for the Pirates, unless they pick up the pace a little bit, might get ugly. Of course, they just came off a 3-game sweep of the Braves, so you really never know.
Well, you know, you look at what the Pirates have done so far against anybody not named Atlanta. So you have the 2 games against the Red Sox and now 3 against the Reds. They've scored a grand total of 6 runs in almost 4 full games. 5 full games, pardon me. I mean, total in all of their games, they've scored 23 runs. Tonight's their 8th game of the year. Only 5 teams in baseball have scored a fewer number of runs than these Pirates. That ball sweeps away, nowhere near the strike zone. And tonight on the Freeze home run, that was their first extra base hit in this series. They have a total of 10 extra base hits in 8 games. 2-1 pitch. Boy, Hudson's all over the map. Who knows what the Pirates will look like the next time we see them, though. I mean, we've seen teams like this in the past where you see them early in the year, they look great, and then you see them again in June and they're awful. And the same thing the other way.
Well, a lot of times injuries have something to do with that.
Pirates will come to Cincinnati the first 4 days of May. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday series. Reds kind enough to give the Pirates an early start on their travel day. Reds will play a 12:35 game on the 4th. Fouled back out of play. And then it will be a very, very long time before these two teams see each other, and then they'll see each other a lot. They will not play the entire month of June or the entire month of July. They'll play to start August, play another series late in August, and then a couple of more in September. Gone swinging is Duvall, and the inning is over. Reds get a run on 3 hits and lead 9-2. Neighborhood Kroger to save big. Store-wide, great food, low prices at Kroger. By Cincinnati USA Regional Tourism Network. Stay close to CincinnatiUSA.com. And by Toyota. For over 30 offers, visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. One of the great events in all of the PGA. The Memorial, presented by Nationwide, coming to beautiful Muirfield Village Golf Club May the 29th through June the 4th. It's the official kickoff to summertime. Order your badges at memorialbadges.com. First pitch swinging against Robert Stevenson. Boy, he'll take that. Is a pinch hitter John Jaso. So for a guy Stevenson, who was so wild his first time out in relief of Bronson Arroyo in St. Louis, and there you see the number 6 walks in an inning and 2/3. He says, I'll take that all day, every day.
Well, it sure should give him a little confidence. I mean, but the Pirates are down by 7.
Alcantara, by the way, stays in the game to play left field. All right, Chris, let's forget about what happened to Robert Stevenson, because this is a highly touted prospect in the Reds organization. Let's talk about what you want to see him start to do.
Well, I think the same thing that Brian Price and Mac Jenkins mentioned after the first game. It's something that he's always done when he's gone bad, which is collapse his backside. A lot of pitchers do that. And what I mean by that is when he gets his leg up in the air, his left leg up in the air, and starts to move to the plate, his back leg, his right leg, will start to bend like he really wants to push off the rubber real hard. But you bend down too far and you never get on top of the baseball and everything flies high and away. So I would suggest to Stevenson, you know, start tall and stay tall. Simple, something like that you can kind of keep in your brain.
Good slider right there.
Got plenty of arm, obviously. 91-mile-an-hour slider is plenty to get anybody out. #1 draft pick in 2011, but you know that can be misleading also. I mean, there's a big difference between being a #1 draft pick in the first 5 rounds and then maybe a #1 draft pick in the last 5 rounds. He was taken 27th overall. So even though he was one of the best high school pitchers in America when he was eligible there in 2011, he wasn't like the Reds were able to pick the first couple of players in the draft. So it always becomes a crapshoot.
A ball driven into right center field off the bat of Jordy Mercer. That'll go to the wall, and Mercer has a 1-out double here in the 8th.
Well, you saw where that pitch was, and it was up around his letters. And, you know, like any pitcher, you're just better when you're off down of the zone. That's probably up and out of the zone, that last pitch.
Center fielder, Starling Marte.
Starling Marte was just worn out tonight by Red starter Amir Garrett. Struck him out swinging twice and got him on a little slow roller to third. It was a great play made by Suarez to throw him out. Point being, Marte wanted nothing to do with a 4th at bat against Garrett in this game. They'll see each other again down the road. Bottom fell out of that pitch. Good pitch. 0-2. Another good one. And Marte out of there swinging. First strikeout for Stevenson, 2 away in the inning. Actually, that's just a terrible decision by Marte. That ball never even started in the strike zone.
Yeah, but you know, Stevenson is throwing 96 and 97 miles an hour, so you don't have long to make your decision.
Reds just want to see this young man start to build some confidence. Tell you, he threw a couple of really nice games as a starter last year when the Reds brought him to the big leagues. Peraza watches as Cozart fields and throws to get him at first. What a beautiful play made by Zach Cozart. One hit, one left. Stevenson a scoreless 8. Rather than the former. I mean, if you're going to have one of those sandwiches, Chris, they were talking about earlier, you know, naturally you would be the guy to bring up the dietary part of all that. You know, you being the leader of the health food kick.
I'm not having too much luck with any followers nowadays.
Sure you are. Cowboy follows, right? Patrick Kivlahan will bat against the Pirate closer, trying to get a little work here tonight, and that's left-hander Tony Watson. He took over after they dealt Mark Melanson at the trade deadline last year. He's always been a rock-solid left-hander out of that Pirate bullpen. Was a setup man for a number of closers that they've gone through here in Pittsburgh. You know, they had the, what's the fellow's name? I'm thinking the great story from a few years ago, made the All-Star team. You know, had the long hair a couple of years ago. Before
Jacob DeGrom?
No, the Pirate closer a couple of years ago. You know, the guy that made the All-Star team after almost quitting?
Jason Grilly.
Right, Jason Grilly. Forgive me. Thank you. Kivlahan a broken bat single. All right, GS bringing the energy. Take a look at the Reds up and down the lineup. Contributions, a hit from everyone in it except for the pitcher Garrett, and he did what he's supposed to do, and that's get people out on the mound. A lot of crooked numbers in there, and that's good stuff for the Reds. Kivlahan, his second hit in 10 at-bats for the Reds this season. Jam shot pop-up by Schebler. 1 out.
I want to have a little shout out of congratulations to the daughter of the Pirates hitting coach, Jeff Branson, McLeay Branson, who's a junior at Ryle High School down in Boone County. Great softball player. And congratulate her. I understand she's committed to go play college softball at University of Kentucky. So Jeff's excited about that, and
congratulations indeed.
He's got his son Landon here. They're on spring break this week, and they're having a great time.
That is great stuff. You know, we also want to mention it was very, very late getting started last night, and we wanted to sit on it till tonight. Our friend Bob Colehep in Cincinnati, his mother turned 99 years young yesterday. Kay, mother of 5 boys, loves to watch every single game, Chris. And Kay, we send you a happy 99th, and we look forward to wishing you the same 1 year from now.
Well, you're not kidding about that.
Magical number 100. And there's one other thing I'd like to just sneak in tonight, if I could, because I tell you, having the honor of announcing in the National Football League for 20-something years. There's ball four to Cozart. You remember Jack Brennan as a writer.
I do.
For the Cincinnati Enquirer. Used to write for many, many years. Was a great writer, and then he found a second career when he became the media relations director of the Cincinnati Bengals. And I was stunned this year when I got assigned a Bengal game early in the year, and Jack had sent me an email and he said, hey, look, I want to keep it quiet, but I'm going to retire at the end of this year. And he's always just been such a good guy, does a great job. Jack Brennan having his retirement party tonight over at the Yard House on the Banks. Jack, I hope you're having a great night. Congratulations. Godspeed in retirement. You're going to be missed. Don't miss Kids Opening Day presented by Frisch's Big Boy. That is this Saturday, the 15th. Arrive early. We have a free block party that gets underway at the Banks featuring a Reds Players Parade. So come on down to that. But a lot of the festivities kick off around 9 a.m. The parade at 10:30. We have face painters, jugglers, photo ops with Cletus from Fox Sports Ohio, and a lot more going on. Check it out at Reds.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Robert Stevenson trying to get the final 3 outs on what would be a sweep for the Reds right here in Pittsburgh, PA. Kivlahan stays in the game. Alan Hansen, the batter, swing and a miss.
That's a dandy little pitch right there that Stevenson just dropped on him after going 96 miles an hour. He took 10 miles an hour off to throw that changeup. Oh, man.
Well, he's looking tonight like the Robert Stevenson we expect to see in the not too distant future. It's 2 strikeouts. He got the 1 pitch up to Mercer, who whacked it for a double, but against everybody else, he's looked mighty good.
I mean, if you can get 10 miles an hour difference in your velocity between fastball and changeup, that's really tough for a hitter to try to adjust to.
That's a base hit the other way off the bat of Francisco Cervelli. His first hit tonight. Here's tonight's showstopper around the league, Giancarlo Stanton. 2 home runs tonight. This laser out into the pool area, out by the Clevelander. It's the 19th time in his career, a Marlins record, that he's hit 2 or more home runs in a game. Apparently some fan jumped in that pool. We saw a fan jump into the river walking back after the game last night. Not quite the same.
That'd be a little chilly.
Not a good idea. A carriage that Jim Day had promised for me after the game last night that he had all lined up. Must have found something better to do. Wasn't out there.
Well, maybe he thought it was be just too cold because it was chilly last night, and if it didn't have windows, you know, the wind chill in that carriage with you yelling mush at the poor bicycle driver. Maybe you'd have a little frostbite today.
Well, I was very disappointed.
Well, it was on Marty's dime, I told you, and he didn't want to pay extra for the rain delay. So it was gone.
Now that doesn't surprise me. Jam shot foul ball off to the third base side by Bell. Marty's been in rare form on this road trip. And even though I'm his son, I think it's starting to get to a point where Jim Day is almost like a mini-me of Marty. Don't you agree with that?
I would say so, yeah.
In what way?
1-2 the count. And gone swinging his Bell. Pirates down to their final out.
You know, pretty soon he'll be walking around with those fancy shirts with the tails out, you know, wearing those moccasins.
Socks on.
Yeah. No socks look.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Day is becoming the Marty mini-me. You know it's true.
If I show up in purple loafers and no socks, you'll know that there's a problem.
Got to go back to 2010, the last time the Reds swept the Pirates here at Pittsburgh. One out to go for Mr. Stevenson. He struck out 3 in relief. Amir Garrett 6 2/3, 5 hits, 2 runs. Blake Wood got the only batter that he faced on a strikeout. And now Stevenson trying to get the final 6 outs. And the Reds an out away from going to 7-2 through their front 9. 2-0 pitch. 3-0 on Josh Harrison. Again, 6:30 tomorrow night will be Reds Live. Reds will kick off a 10-game homestand tomorrow. Plenty of tickets available We invite you to come on down and check out the Redlegs. There's a 4-pitch walk. Adam Frazier will bat. Stevenson going to tie his shoe and then rub up the baseball before getting back on that rubber. He's missed on 5 straight pitches since his strikeout of Bell. Road trip began with a 3-game series in a place where the Reds have had a hard time winning games through the years, but the Reds took 2 of 3 in St. Louis. And now an out away, a strike away from a 3-game sweep in Pittsburgh. But as Brian Price was talking about after the final game in St. Louis, he said we have a lot of guys that weren't part of that track record of losing games in Pittsburgh or losing to anybody. Started to go. He did not go. So 2-2 the count. With 1 more strike and 1 more out to go for Stevenson. Let's see if he can get it. Two and 2 on Frazier. And that's the old ball game. Stevenson punches out 4 in 2 scoreless innings of relief. And the Reds sweep the Pirates here in Pittsburgh. Final count tonight of 9-2. Much better work by Stevenson. That's good to see.
Well, it's got to be a little confidence builder for him. But this ball club right now, they don't need any more confidence. They're just rolling right along. They think they're top of the world, and they just about are. They're at least at the top of the Central Division standings as they get to home, and we'll have a 4-game set against the Brewers. Pretty good baseball. Maybe a good time to come out this weekend to watch this Redlegs team.
Well, with Arizona starting in another, 10 minutes, as the Reds, the 7-2 start, the best since that World Championship team that went wire to wire in 1990. The Diamondbacks don't start for a little while. As of this very moment, right now, the Reds are tied for the best record in all of Major League Baseball with Arizona at 7-2. Some might say, all right, you're 9 games in. Well,